What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. It's season 2, episode 11 already. Week number 4 of the NFL just wrapped up, or I guess tonight, as I'm recording this, is Monday Night Football, of course, between the Rams and Niners. But for the Commanders, week 4 has wrapped up, and we are now 1-3. It was another loss this week, this time to the arch rival Dallas Cowboys. 25-10 was the final score. The Cowboys ended up winning in Jerry's World. It was not the greatest performance again for Washington. I mean, Wentz went 25 of 42. He didn't even throw for 200 yards. Like, he went for 170, one touchdown, and then 2 picks as well. But I will say the offensive line did do better than they did last week against the Philadelphia Eagles when we had 8 or 9 sacks. I can't really remember the exact number. But it was only 2 sacks this time for 15 yards. Wentz had a 23.3 quarterback rating and a 56.7 passer rating. Wasn't the best performance from him. I have not seen his PFF grade yet, but I don't expect it to be that great either. The run game wasn't really up to par either. I mean, 142 yards actually is not that bad on 27 carries. Antonio Gibson was the leading rusher with 49 yards on 13 carries, an average of 3.8. But I do want to talk about that kind of broke out in this game. Jonathan Williams. I mean, I guess you could say he's trying to fight for a roster spot on this team, even though it's week 4 of the NFL season, because of Brian Robinson when he comes back, which I'm going to give an update later on in this video. So stay tuned for that. But Jonathan Williams, 5 carries for 48 yards, an average of 9.6, with his longest being a 23-yard carry. Not bad for, I believe, a 7-year veteran or 6-year veteran. Jonathan Williams. J.D. McKissick had 8 carries for 40 yards, 5 yards average, his longest being a 33-yard run. I mean, the running game wasn't that bad overall. McKissick also had 3 catches for 16 yards on, I believe, 4 targets I'm looking at. So the run game wasn't that bad. It was actually fairly good. Just the passing game could not get going. I saw this one stat. It was like Carson Wentz had a 4.8 per air yards per attempt or something like that. I don't know the exact number, but I remember it was around 5. And there's a lot of people right now on Twitter and stuff saying Trayvon Diggs locked down Terry McLaurin, which I will say Diggs did a great job. Okay, he did a great job in coverage against McLaurin, but Carson Wentz was not helping at all. He was not throwing it deep to McLaurin, and when he did, it was just a bad read or super late. They never really got like an actually good shot at it, in my opinion. But I mean, Cowboys fans, of course, would say different. Trayvon Diggs, I will say, has looked very good throughout this season so far. I know last year one of the things was he had 11 interceptions, but he didn't I think he had 900 plus, I believe, yards allowed or something like that. So he's really stepped up and brought that number down a lot, I think. Plus, he already has 2 picks, I want to say. I know he got one of them off of Carson Wentz. I think he got one last week, too, which was his first of the year. He also dropped an interception, I believe, in this game against Wentz as well. So he was close to getting 3 picks on the year already, and it's week 4. I mean, this guy, he could really be a top 5 cornerback by the end of this season. I have him right now, or coming into the season, I had him at 13 or 12, I think. So he could really enter that top 5 situation, especially with Xavier Howard now playing that great so far this season. I mean, I could really see Trayvon Diggs being a top 5 cornerback and pretty much a cornerstone of this defense. Another guy that's a cornerstone of this defense, Micah Parsons. He absolutely went off. It felt like so many pressures. He had 4 tackles, a tackle for loss. But I don't know how many pressures PFF is going to give him, but it's going to be a lot because I feel like he made an impact every single play. The speed that he has when Washington decided to run a lot of I feel like the pattern for Washington's offense this game was run, or it was like run and then holding call, move back 10 yards, which penalties was a big issue. Let me pull up the amount of penalties, which it was way too many. 11 penalties for 136 yards. We had almost as many penalties as Carson Wentz did passing yards, and pretty much the same amount of penalty yards we had as the run game. So in total, if you subtract the run game with the amount of penalty yards we had, it counteracted with only 3. But like I was saying, it was a run and then a holding call, so it moved back to 1st and 20. Then it was like probably an incomplete pass or something. Anyways, it somehow ended up on 3rd and long, and we always just threw a wide receiver screen or a halfback screen. And Micah Parsons, who you could really tell that you would either do a screen on either side, and then you would just attack the side Micah Parsons isn't on. Parsons' speed is just unmatched, I believe, to pretty much any other edge rusher in the NFL right now. I mean, he can really do it all. I think he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year this year, but he can really just do it all. Let's move back to the passing game. Like I was saying, Carson Wentz not that great. Jahan Dotson was the leading receiver in this one, 3 catches for 43 yards. The receiving game didn't really get going until garbage time, I felt like, in that fourth quarter. I'll look at the advanced stats maybe in a little bit, but to see what the actual stats were before that fourth quarter. But, I mean, Dotson, 3 catches, 43 yards, a touchdown, 31 yards being his longest catch on 4 targets. He has 4 touchdowns this season. Jahan Dotson is the leading touchdown guy through the air for Washington. And as a first-round pick, that's pretty good. But something that's not pretty good, Jahan Dotson being out 1 to 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. He did, I believe, end up playing the entire game for Washington. It maybe happened towards the end. I'm not really sure where it happened. But Ron Rivera said in his presser on Monday that Jahan Dotson will at least miss, I'm pretty sure, this game against the Titans, possibly next week. Oh, wait, no. Definitely next week, actually, probably. Or it'll be interesting because we got the Titans this week on Sunday, and then we have a short week next week, and we play the Bears on Thursday Night Football. So that's going to be a great game. I'm going to have a guest next week talking about that game between the Bears and the Commanders. But Jahan Dotson, it's going to be bad. Pretty much, he was really one of the only parts that was like watchable of this offense, which has become an absolute joke to a lot of defenses here in the last few weeks. But moving on with the receivers, Curtis Samuel, 4 catches for 38 yards. John Bates, the blocking tight end, backup tight end, 4 catches for 19. Logan Thomas, 5 catches for 19. J.D. McKissick, I already said, 3 catches for 16. Terry McLaurin was really shut down today by Trevon Diggs, 2 catches for 15 yards on 6 targets. I believe Diggs had like 4 or 3 pass breakups, which was just great for him. Not so great for the Washington offense. Antonio Gibson had 3 catches for 14 yards on 3 targets, and De'Ami Brown with 1 catch, or his weekly 1 catch for 6 yards. So it wasn't the greatest showing from really anyone on this Washington receiving core, especially when you have guys like Dotson, Samuel, and McLaurin, 3 guys who have played absolutely incredible so far this season. McLaurin, you could say, well, we know McLaurin and what he can actually do, but hasn't been that productive so far at the start of the season. But Samuel and Dotson have both been pretty solid, and they both combined for, I believe, less than 90 yards, less than 85 yards. It wasn't a great performance. One boost we will get back though with this offense is Brian Robinson. Of course, got shot right before the season started, which very unfortunate. But he will be activated off the non-football injury list per Ron Rivera on his Monday presser. So that's going to be great. There's optimism. Ron Rivera said that he's going to play this week against the Tennessee Titans. If he does play this week, I wouldn't expect his workload to be that much, but I think he'll definitely be a big boost to a team that is starting to really focus on this run game and hoping for the best as Carson Wentz. As a passer, we have the weapons, and this is probably one of the most talented offenses. I'll say this is one of the most talented offenses in the NFL if you take out the quarterback position, if you just look at the skill groups besides the quarterback position. But we have Carson Wentz at our quarterback spot, and that's really holding us back right now. I feel like he's being way too conservative at times, which he's hesitating a lot throwing these picks. He only threw 7 picks all last season, and I believe, I'm going to look at it right here. So far this season, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He threw 7 interceptions each of the last 4 seasons, I believe, and he's already at 5 so far in this first 4 games. Let's move on to the defense. I guess John Bates did have a fumble, but he got it back. But on the defensive side of things, we played very well for the circumstance that we were in. The Dallas Cowboys, of course, putting up 25 points, but you can't really do much when Carson Wentz throws a pick inside your own 30-yard line or inside your own 40-yard line. So most of these points, we held them to a lot of field goals once they got into the red zone, but that you could tell the defense just got extremely tired by the end. Jonathan Allen was the leading tackler with 8. He had 1 sack as well with 4 tackles for loss. Jonathan Allen had a great game, 1 pass defense and 1 quarterback hit as well. He's really playing up to the amount of money that we're giving him. A guy that we should pay the amount of money, or maybe probably a little bit less than Jonathan Allen, but Cole Holcomb, our middle linebacker, 8 tackles as well for him, 4 of those being solo. he is in a contract year. We all know that, but hopefully we can re-sign him. It'll just depend on how much money Ron Rivera wants to spend as the linebacker spot, one of the weakest positions on this team, of course. And Cole Holcomb is really the only one that's bringing this all together. Cam Curl had 7 tackles. Bobby McCain had 6 tackles. Curl, I believe, almost had a pick sometime in this game, and then he just couldn't hold it in. But oh, sorry, no, that was Bobby McCain. He caught it and it was out of bounds. Deron Payne, a tackle for loss, 5 tackles for him. Jamin Davis, 5 tackles. I don't really know what Jack Del Rio was doing this game. He put Jamin Davis on CeeDee Lamb a lot, and that went pretty much how you would expect it to go. CeeDee Lamb won pretty much all the time, as Jamin Davis, who was really drafted for his coverage ability, one of the best coming out of that 2021 draft, one of the best coverage linebackers in that class, and then he really got drafted for his coverage ability, and it's really not been there. And so when you put up the wide receiver one man on man against Jamin Davis, who has really struggled in coverage so far in his career, that's where you're going to get CeeDee Lamb went off in this game. He had 6 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Noah Brown also had a pretty solid game, 3 catches, 61 yards. Cooper Rush, 15 of 27, 223, and 2 touchdowns. But pretty much the offense went off. It's pretty much it'll be interesting to see if Cooper Rush is going to be probably a guy that could be maybe a starting caliber quarterback. But back to the defense. Deron Payne had 5 tackles. William Jackson had 4 tackles, a tackle for loss. We only had 1 sack the entire game. It was pretty much Jonathan Allen who pretty much put this defense together, and he was kind of just that guy. On the other hand, 6 tackles for loss for the Cowboys defense, led by Dante Fowler Jr. and Neville Gallimore each had 2. Malik Hurker and Micah Parsons each had 1 tackle for loss, 2 sacks. I talked about it earlier. Dante Fowler, Neville Gallimore being the 2 guys for that Dallas defensive front that got the sacks. A lot of pressures probably from Micah Parsons. I already mentioned that, but guys like Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, they played very great in that secondary for the Dallas Cowboys. So, I mean, not really much you could do on the defensive side. The Cowboys defense played pretty solid, which was expected, as that is their strength on their team, I would say, right now. And then the defense for Washington played pretty solid as well up until the end, which you could tell we were just pretty much done. Onto the special team side of things, though, Dax Milne, 1 return for 18 yards, not that great. Again, Dax Milne, he's an okay returner, but like I don't really know what exactly our plan is for returning. I'm not really worried about it because that's not our biggest concern right now. Pardon the airplane that just came in, but Joey Sly, he had his first field goal attempt of the season, and he knocked it down from 45 yards out. Pretty solid game from him, I guess. You could say he knocked down his first field goal of the season. He also hit his lone extra point for a total of 4 points. And then Tress Way, who is probably going to be the NFC player of the week in terms of special teams. 6 punts, which when your punter is the special teams player of the week, you probably lost the game, which we did. 6 punts for Tress Way, 270 yards, 45 average, his longest being 52 yards, and 5 of his 6 punts being inside the Cowboys 20. A great game from our punter. That's why we've got a Pro Bowl punter right there. Brian Anger on the other side, he had a pretty solid game, 6 punts for 255 yards, and 2 of those being inside the 20 with as long as being 58. But overall, I mean, it was, what else do we expect? Another loss for Washington. We moved to 1-3, 0-2 on the road now, and next week we're going to go back home to the Tennessee Titans, who just beat the Indianapolis Colts 24-17. I talked about Jahan Dotson probably going to be out for the game against the Titans. I talked about Brian Robinson coming back. He's off the NFI list, or he's going to get off of it sometime this week. Another guy that I forgot to mention, Tyler Larsen, the backup center. He tore his Achilles last season. He's getting activated off injured reserve. So it'll be interesting to see what we're going to do, as Brian Robinson and Tyler Larsen will both be getting added back to the 53-man roster. That means we're going to need to cut or move 2 guys off of the 53-man roster. It'll be interesting to see who we choose to do so. I think Nick Martin might be a guy. He was our starting center this week. Not Nick Martin, sorry. Probably Jonathan Williams being that guy. Even though he had a great game against the Cowboys, I think he's going to get cut, or not cut, but like released and then brought back to the practice squad probably, because when Brian Robinson comes back, that'll be our 3 running backs: Gibson, Robinson, and McKissick. You can put them in any order. I'm not really arguing that right now. But Tyler Larsen is going to come back. That's pretty great. He can be our starting center with Chase Roulier being away, which is seeming to be like another season-ending injury for him. It's a tough loss, but when he comes back, it'll be like December is my guess, but it's going to be a pretty long time, I would say. And here to wrap things up, again, we played Tennessee Titans this week. A big game for Tennessee, 24-17 win over the Colts. Let's see how Henry did. Derrick Henry, 22 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be up against 3 first-round picks in that defensive front for Washington. That'll be an interesting game. Ryan Tannehill was 17 of 21, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Not a bad game from Tannehill, who the week prior got benched for Malik Willis, or I guess 2 weeks prior got benched for Malik Willis. So it was interesting to see. Robert Woods. Oh yeah, Traylon Burks, the Titans' first-round pick, got carted off the field during the game against the Colts with a turf toe, I believe, is what they're diagnosing him with. So he's going to be out most likely for the game against Washington. So I guess that'll help our cornerback room, which is very, you could say, like not deep right now. Shallow, I guess you could say, because we have Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller hasn't played the greatest right now. William Jackson has been absolutely horrendous, or the second highest paid player on this team. And then Benjamin St-Juste, who I will make the point, I'll make the argument that he's the best cornerback on this team. I don't know if I said it last week on last week's pod, but I'm going to say it right here. Benjamin St-Juste is the best cornerback on the Washington Commanders. So it's something. It's something right now. But those are really our only 3 guys, and then after that, it gets John Ridgeway or something like that, and then what's his name? I don't think he played. There's another airplane, but that one dude that played the week before, Wild Goose, Richard Wild Goose, yeah, that guy as well. So wait, John Ridgeway isn't even a cornerback. It's whatever, but Wild Goose, that guy is also a cornerback as well. I guess we have been moving Derek Forrest, Bobby McCain, and Cameron Crowe. We've been switching them out with the cornerback spots as well. So, I mean, I guess our secondary is okay right now, but it could definitely be a lot better. That'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I mean, it was another tough loss this week, but next week we've got the Tennessee Titans coming up, a team that I think we could definitely win a game against, but if we lose, we'll be 1-4, and there's definitely going to be some questions brought up between Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, Scott Turner. We're going to discuss that on next week's pod with a special guest, a Bears fan that's going to be on. So we're going to talk about the Titans game a little bit. We're going to talk about the Bears game the week before that Sunday as well. And then we're going to talk about a preview for the game against the Bears on Thursday Night Football at Soldier Field. Charles Leno returned against the Chicago Bears. You could maybe call this a revenge game since the Bears didn't want to pay him. But he came to Washington. It'll be interesting to see how will Justin Fields do in this game, in that Week 6 game, and then Roquan Smith. So I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself, but next week we've got Derrick Henry, we've got Kevin Byard, we've got the former first-round pick Caleb Farley, we've got Ryan Tannehill coming up. So it's going to be definitely a game against the Titans. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.